Now, the 2017 IAAF World Championships has ended in London, and Nigeria did not win a medal.
Yes, indeed. Nigeria did not win any medal. Now, the country's journey to the championships in London was disjointed, with so many of the athletes arriving late for the event. Not even the country's best medal hopeful, Blessing Okagbare Igotegwono, could guarantee Nigeria a medal in London like she did in Moscow 4 years ago.
Yeah, because in Moscow in 2013, Okagbare gave Nigeria 2 medals, a silver and the long jump, and a bronze medal in the 200 meters for women. And on top of the dismal performance, African triple jump champion Tosin Oke has accused the Athletes Federation of Nigeria, AFN, of graft.
Oke says the AFN owes millions of naira in withheld training funds. He emphasizes that the country's poor performance in athletics, where she was among the best in the late 1980s and early 90s, is due to discrimination and holding back of training grants. Nigeria failed dismally in the 4x400 meters relay after a dismal coaching decision in the final.
Now, the coaches had changed the team, which secured qualification in the semi-final, including an athlete who only arrived camp a few hours to the race. Tales of woe there from the British-born Nigerian jumper.
Well, joining us now is the man who is regarded as one of the best athletics coaches the country has ever had. And then in the old Bendel state, he was also a former president of the Athletics Federation of Nigeria. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Tony Urobo. Glad to have you on TVC Breakfast this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to have you.
So what exactly has happened to athletics? Is it dying, or is it dead already? Is the 8th time, or is it the 9th actually, that Nigeria has gone out there only to come back home with nothing to show for it? What has brought us to this sorry pass?
We are all part and parcel of the problems facing the country right now, not just in sports alone. But if you could go back a little bit, maybe in the 70s and the 80s, what were we doing right that we got to where we were? And what happened? Why did we drop all of a sudden? Simply put, it's all about management and education. If you have the right personnel with the right knowledge put in the right positions, then you have a different result. Unfortunately for us, there's been so much politics with regards to the appointments of persons into specialist areas like sports. Sports has become a global and is one of the biggest business in the world. You find players in football and some other sports earning as much as you can just imagine it. Yeah. £500,000 a week, 600,000, 190 something million pounds to buy a player. You should know that
it's big business.
It's big business. And as such, those who are who have been placed at the head of administration of such massive organization must be persons with a broad knowledge of management. If you don't have a knowledge about how sports is run, you have no business. So we've been doing things the wrong way all along, and we're getting the same results. You don't expect to get a better results when you do the same things you've been doing for the past decade.
Now, but in this case, the ministry is meant to be able to coordinate all the different federations going into any tournament in the world, or even organizing local tournaments. The ministry is there. There is no faction. There is no. So if they're not being able to coordinate all of this, is that where the problem really starts from? If we have to narrow down to issues of management you're talking about.
Without mincing words, I think the ministry is the bedrock, is the foundation of sports in the country. I'll take you back a little bit to the 60s and 70s. When you talk about sports, especially from the government aspect of it, you can't help but remember names like the late Brigadier General Osagbo Ogbemudia. How did this general excel amongst his colleagues in sports? 1, he was educated. 2, he was trained in management. And then thirdly, he was a sportsman himself. But when you have persons who just claim to be sportsmen and have little knowledge about the management of sports, then you have a problem. I was privileged to have met him during his 83rd birthday because I benefited a lot from his management. I was one of the first persons that I was given scholarships into the university by this same man who understood the importance of sports. And so when you have persons like that in governance, you must get positive results. He was also visibly present when I became the national chief coach of this country. He was appointed the chairman of the Sports Commission. And he listened to technical advice from competent persons in different positions in sports.
So all of these now are missing in today's sports management, whether you're talking about athletics, football,
precisely,
and the rest of them. And we keep talking about lack of funds, lack of training, lack of preparation or preparedness and all of that. It's a vicious cycle that, how do we break out from this cycle? Tosin has accused the AFN of all kinds of things. And I wonder how, to what extent are these accusations true?
They're fact. They are facts and they are correct. We can't run away from it. I will tell you, for instance, I just went through an internet report of this just completed World Championships. Great Britain pumped in and spent about 27 million pounds. But yet, the young man who was analyzing the performance of Britain was saying that was not enough. And they should look into some of the details that was responsible for Great Britain's just 2 gold medals and a few other medals, with the kind of money that was invested into the event. So that tells you, first of all, that it is not just about money. It goes down to how you implement your programs. Unfortunately for us, we have not been good in management. Talk less about the technical aspect of it. Sports is highly technical. And if you get the wrong persons to manage that area, no amount of money you pump in there, you'll be a complete failure.
All right, if we talk about this management and performance, we know that one way, like you were talking about late General Ogbemudia, and even yourself.
That's right.
You are all example of people who are very skilled, people who coach with techniques and have all it takes to stand anywhere in the world.
That's right.
Do we still have that benchmark? Do we still have those standards, those kind of skills for coaching in Nigeria? Even before we even talk about funding, do we have those standards of skill?
We have them. That's why I said if you put the square pegs in round holes, they will not function. It's about having the administrative skill to make a selection of the right technical hands to head such positions. The head of technical must be somebody who is competent enough to also invite and put in his administration persons in the various fields who are technically knowledgeable.
Should it start from the level of the Minister of Sports, for example? Should he be skilled? Should he be passionate enough about sports? Should he have the training to be able to direct his energies in the right places, in a way that it can give us results?
Unfortunately, that's what the situation appears to need, especially in the third world, and call them the developing countries. If the man at the head is not knowledgeable enough to seek for the right persons or to make appointments in these key areas is going to be faced with lots of problems.
So what are countries like Kenya, for example? Kenya actually came second. South Africa came third in this IAAF. What are they doing right? These are African countries that
Kenya,
we are not doing.
I will give you a brief history about the Kenyan program. There was a man called Mal Whitfield. He was an Olympic champion. He worked with the USIS, United States Information Service, many years ago. I was privileged to have witnessed one of the seminars. He came to Nigeria in the 70s. And he said he was involved in the development of the Kenyan middle and long distance program. And he came into Kenya and helped them to develop a very solid tactical and technical program of developing middle and long distance runners. He was an Olympic champion in the program of developing middle and long distance runners. He was an Olympic champion in the 400 and 800. And so we had these programs where the United States sends some of its top technical officials to Africa and various places. And so the Kenyans had to learn and had to install a program which they have followed to date. But unfortunately, I would say due to our political situations we find in the country, you find that there's always one change or the other. When you have a good government, you have somebody in position who is doing something right. As soon as there's a change of government, everything changes. Everything changes. That is our main problem. We still have persons who are technically qualified, who could handle this, but there's some funny politics going on with regards to appointments. And if you find carefully, if you look at the situation in Nigeria right now, you could see that they were still trying to organize even the federation itself. They had elections leading into these games. Totally. Nobody remembered that this competition was coming up. And the last minute, it was full of...
All right, at the time you were president of the Athletics Federation of Nigeria, was there enough funding the way that you wanted that made you perform the way you performed?
I would say there wasn't that enough, but it was my duty at that time to look for funds. You see, the government cannot fund sports wholly. In fact, what the government should be doing is providing the enabling atmospheres for public enterprise to get involved. All over the world, government is not involved directly in the funding. They are involved in the areas of setting down the laws, the rules, and then supervising that. The funding of sports should be left in the hands of the multinational companies. These are the companies that have the where and all to provide the finances. Government has so many things it has placed its hands on that it has to do. So government is overburdened with so much. But even beyond the issue of, okay, you are going to make some more points. Yes. Before I break into your thoughts, then beyond the issue of funding and all of that, Nigeria is blessed with so much talent. I'm sure, you know, in your work so far as a big player, I mean, in Nigerian sports, you have a situation where Nigerian athletes actually hold the fastest 100 meters times on 3 different continents. Soji Fasuba, Africa, representing Nigeria, Obikwelu, Portugal, Femi Ogunode in Qatar. How is it that Nigeria is not able to harness this talents and allow those people to actually just go out? There's one other gentleman, what's his name again? Ebele Chukwu, that actually had to change his name and change his country. Well, like I said, it's purely an administrative issue and management of our resources. Nigeria is in a position, even in a better position than even the United States of America.
Well, how is that?
In terms of talent, is the most populated black nation in the world. We have close to almost half of that population are in the youthful category. We have over 100 million youths. There was a small interview of an American a few weeks back, and he was talking about Nigerians in the United States of America in two sports, basketball, football. And he says, these are some of the most talented human beings on earth.
Wow.
That are Nigerian basketball players. He named them, he listed their names, Hakeem Olajuwon and a few of them, who came from a country where they never even played basketball, came into Nigeria, came into the United States,
US,
and took the country to a storm. And so we have this massive population, but we have not been able to design a program that will be to the benefit of the country. I'll give you, for instance, most of the athletes that even perform for United States of America are collegiate students. They are from the universities.
Yes.
There has been a long-standing program in the United States where some of the best athletes all over the world, they scout for them, they award them scholarships, and they send to them, take up American citizenship.
But Nigeria has Nuga Games, for example. What has happened to Nuga Games? Shouldn't that be the pool where you actually pick these talents from?
Well, that's where that's where the problem lies, because the Nuga game is ill-equipped and ill-organized, poorly organized. There are well over 120 higher institutions in Nigeria. There are well over 2,000 secondary schools in Nigeria. But how many of such schools participate? How much is our organizational structure compared to what happens in the US? You have collegiate events. The Ministry of Education actually is supposed to handle sports at the grassroots level because they have the capacity, they have the wherewithal to organize it. But sometime in the 30s, about some 20 years ago, in fact, when I was my first job was a coach in Bendel, the Sports Commission, the sports was created, and they took away sports from the Ministry of Education. And when you take away sports from the Ministry of Education, you do not have the wherewithal to control and manage sports at that level. And so what happened? The Ministry of Education just completely stopped the administration of sports in the schools. It now became a single affair where only schools that were interested were now managing sports. So it's an institutional problem that needed to be solved.
Okay, we're trying to manage time now, but we'd like you to tell us about some of the best athletes you have produced so that we have an idea and people can bond with some of the achievements you've had.
Yes, and how exactly were you able to produce them?
With the hindsight of what I went through as a young man growing up in school at the secondary level, I knew that there was so much talent in the country. I understood the program that the organizational structure was so low such that whenever you produce an athlete from the secondary school and he gets into the Nigerian institutions and higher educational system, his talent is lost because the universities do not encourage active participation in sports. And so I was knowledgeable enough to know that there were facilities that were open outside the country that could manage our sports. And so what I did was to have some connections with some higher institutions abroad in the US, and most of the athletes I worked with at that time, I opened up opportunities for them. They had scholarships to American institutions. At the Olympics in Los Angeles, I think that was '84, when the Nigerian team won a bronze medal for Nigeria in the 4x4 relays. I listened to the CNN commentary on that, and if you heard what they said, you'll know precisely that they took away the credit from Nigeria and said all the bronze medalists from Nigeria were all American trained.
Whoa.
And so you see exactly what has been going on.
Oh.
Our athletes are talented, but the organizational structure in sports in Nigeria makes it almost impossible for them to perform at the same level as their foreign counterparts. And so as at that time, it was best to allow our best athletes go over there. And then the problem that we now had was managing those athletes who are abroad. In 2012, I predicted that it was going to be difficult for Kagbare to win a medal for us, for Nigeria.
What did you see?
Because she was already involved in competitions outside that brings a lot of income. And these are the Grand Prix. Once an athlete gets involved, especially a Nigerian athlete gets involved in the Grand Prix, he or she is no longer interested in the events like the Olympics, the Commonwealth Games, the All-Africa Games that are just for medals. Not only Nigeria, the Kenyans had that problem. And so they had to learn that you've got to manage your athletes properly, take control, help them in terms of sponsorship, and provide the enabling atmosphere for them.
And opportunities.
Opportunities.
All right.
That's right.
Well, so much to talk about, but this is where we have to leave it right now. Tony Robo, former president of Athletics Federation of Nigeria, thank you so much for coming on the program.